Hey, what's going on? You're listening to the Road Trip Podcast, and it's your host, Gregor Gallagher. And today we have on a pro fitness model. We got on Nate Tebow. That's his. Tebow is your fitness name.
Yeah, so my last name is it's Tebow, but it's spelled uh, in a way that no one would ever know it's Tebow. So for simplicity's sake and for business sake, I just do what Tim Tebow does, which I believe that his last name is actually spelled like mine, but he had the same idea. So
Yeah,
Tebow for simplicity's sake.
that's very smart. Otherwise, no one would find you. Like, oh, you should check this guy named Nate Tebow. And they're like, how does it spell?
Yeah, no,
Thibeau.
my whole life I've dealt with that, so I was like, no more.
No, good. Very, very smart. So anyone that's listening right now can't see, but Nate is in just incredible jaw-dropping shape. I mean, you do a lot of photo shoots year-round. Have you competed in fitness competitions?
I have not competed yet. Everyone seems to really be pushing me to do that, and it's something that I guess is on my bucket list, but as of now, it's not a huge priority for me, just because in my eyes, it's like, why pay money to compete in the show when you could, be doing photo shoots and actually get paid to do it?
Yeah, it's a smart business to like get all these fitness people that are in great shape and be like, pay money to see how you stack up to other people.
Exactly.
But no, it's very rare you see people in your type of condition. So before we get into this, because this episode we're really going to talk about the mindset to achieve your dream physique. And Nate's a great person to talk to because, yeah, he's pretty much at that like pinnacle of what you can achieve. And then we're going to talk about, get a glimpse into like what his training and diet looks like, and if that's something that maybe you could consider, maybe something you could see yourself doing, which is important because when you read the magazines and you hear about these different bodybuilders and fitness models, you just see that they live in the gym and they eat like the same boring foods all the time. And hey, you know, my job is to teach people about fitness, and I couldn't do that. So I mean, how are you expected to do that? So for people, so like let's start with your stats. What's your weight at? 'Cause I think people have like this idea they have to be like huge to look good. So I mean, how tall are you? What's your weight at? And what kind of body fat range do you usually stay in?
Yeah, so right now, I guess you could say I'm taking a little mini off season, even though it's like, I'm still, yeah, I can never really go above 9, 10% body fat, nor do I like to do that. But about 6'1", currently about 195 pounds. Um, Over the summer when I was doing massive amounts of photo shoots, I was probably more like 185, very, very lean. But when people see me in the gym or they see me in real life, they're like, "Dude, what are you, like 220?" So it's like the leaner you get, it's like the illusion of more size. And I know you've mentioned that. Your waist gets smaller, your shoulders get broader, and people just think you look so much bigger. So that's why when guys get so caught up in weight, like you said, I was like, don't really focus on the number of the scale, because I mean, look at guys like Greg Plitt. The guy looks huge, rest in peace. But he was like 190 pounds. So you really don't need to get too caught up in the number on the scale. It's more, what you look like.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of times, well, it's a good indicator if someone is juicing, because if someone's 6'1" and shredded and 220, you can't do that naturally.
Right.
You can only get so big as a natural and be lean. And so I'm like 5'10", and I'm not going to be shredded at 185. That's just out of the cards. If I want to be like really shredded, I got to get down to 175 or below. And so someone that's 6'1" can carry an extra 20 pounds of mass usually. Just
Yeah.
due to I think it's like 7 pounds per inch that the heavier you can be.
And what I've noticed too is when guys start dieting, they see the scale drop to these levels, and they start freaking out. They're like, "Oh my God, that's too light," But it's all just ego bullshit. It's like, it doesn't matter what the number says. It's like, what do you want to look like? What's your goal in this? Because you're not going to be, very few people are 200 plus pounds and single digit body fat, unless you're like 6'5".
Yeah.
It takes years and years of work to get, if you can even get there at all. So yeah, my biggest thing, and what I tell a lot of my clients, is just don't get so focused on the number. Just focus on what you're seeing in the mirror. And with all the times it'd be like, I want to be 210. I want to be 220. I was like, well, why do you want to be 210, 220? Because your buddy's 220 and he looks good. No, don't focus. Focus on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, that's a very very killer point, and yeah, the heavier weight, just trying to get to like that big weight, it just ruins your, because you can never get there and be lean and have good proportion. It's the fat comes, and it's like, see, I recommend people, and I'm sure you're the same way. I think more important than weight is proportion. Far more important. So actually, the problem is that if you want to have ideal proportion, if you want to have that solid waist to chest ratio or waist to shoulder ratio, then if you get too heavy, your waist is going to increase, and your shoulders will never be able to keep up.
Yeah, you
Never. And it looks awful. So I mean, like when I was at like 190, my waist to shoulder ratio wasn't that strong. It was good. Like people were like, wow, like you got broad shoulders, but relative to my waist, it was not nearly as good as when I got down to 175, and then I hit that like 1 to 1.6, 1.8, whatever ratio it is. The same thing with my arms. Like I try and keep my arms like I try and keep my arms at least half of my waist. So if I have like a bit more than half actually. If I have like a 31.5-inch waist, I try and keep them above 16 inches. So just over. But like if I get my waist to like 33, 34 inches, I got to hit almost 17 inches to have that same effect, which is not going to happen. So yeah, keeping like I think like an easy way for people to think about this is like, because what is your waist at, Nate?
Currently it's about 31 inches.
31 inches. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. And at 6'1" and 190, 31 inches is remarkable. Is that what it's like? That's what it's at when you're a photo shoot condition, or?
No, when I'm photo shoot condition, it's more like 29.
Holy crap!
Yeah. So
wow.
That's why I've always appeared so much heavier than I really am, because I have like an anorexic waist, and I do consider myself to have a decent amount of size, but a lot of it is an illusion too. It's the proportions like you mentioned. So.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah. So I mean, definitely people kind of they get caught up in hitting this weight, and it doesn't count. Being 220 doesn't count if you have a 36-inch waist.
I love it.
Yeah. It just doesn't count.
Absolutely.
If you're 17% body fat, like the weight doesn't count. And then people, I see this where someone's like 16% body fat and they're like 210 pounds, and they think that, oh, if I get down to 195, I'll be like 7%. It's like, no,
yes,
no, that's completely not true. Like maybe on paper, like you get down to like 190, you'll be like 10%, but then in actuality, like most people, like they're just to get really really lean, it doesn't work out that way.
Right. Yeah, I always tell people, whatever weight you think you need to be at to be shredded to the bone, subtract about 10 pounds to that, and then we'll be talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I even when I was at 190, I'm like, oh yeah, if I cut 5 pounds of fat, I'll be like shredded. And I'm like, okay, no, that didn't work out. Because you have to imagine, like, your body stores fat everywhere. It's not just your stomach,
Mm-hmm.
You're storing fat in your legs, your arms, your chest, your face, and so.
The first place it goes is my face.
Oh, God. Wow.
I hate it.
That's like the last. Actually, that's kind of, my face kind of comes down last, but yeah, pretty even.
I can have a moon face and still be sub 10%.
Okay, yeah, okay. Damn, yeah, I'm kind of similar.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So let's talk about your training and nutrition. So for you to like be in like like maintain like that photo shoot physique at 195, 190, 195. I mean, how much time are you putting into the gym? What does your diet look like? Do you focus more on like hitting your macros, or more on eating clean, or how does that look?
So I guess I'll start with talking about what I do in terms of dieting, because I do differ a little bit training and nutrition-wise from bulking versus cutting. So when I'm actively seeking to lose body fat, my number one priority is keeping my calories as high as I possibly can. And as an ectomorph, as a naturally thin guy, I can keep my calories very high. Like when I was shredded over the summer, I didn't drop below 3,000 calories a day. I was eating 400 grams of carbs a day. I was eating ice cream every night. I kept my fats very low because I like to keep my carbs higher, and I
You were
feel
doing
that
for like 60, 70 grams or less?
I was probably doing like 40 to 50 grams a day.
Wow, wow.
My mindset behind that, I don't recommend this long term, but you know, I am a believer that if you can cut carbs just
Mhm.
fine, but your performance is gonna drop.
Mhm.
And that's what I found is whenever I would drop carbs, I never dropped carbs below like 350 grams.
Mhm.
Um, Whenever I did, I would just flatten out. I had to do refeeds every 3 days. Like that's how much I would flatten out. And when I say refeed, I'm talking like 600, 700 grams of carbs.
Mhm.
Um, I'm so insulin sensitive, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I actually have pictures of myself like flattened out, and then one day after 700 grams of carbs, I looked 20 pounds heavier. It was just insane.
Oh,
It was like, do
yeah.
I even lift? To I'm just
That
like fucking
that would
huge.
be great for like a muscle building transformation.
I
Just
know. And
deprive yourself of carbs for like 5 days and flatten out like crazy, and then be like, look at what I can do in one day.
yeah, and you look leaner too because although it forces the subcutaneous water out and everything. But anyhow, so diet wise, I keep carbs as high as possible. Keep my fats low to moderate and protein pretty high, like 1.5 grams per pound. I just like to err on the side of a little bit too much versus not enough, and it just happens to be satiating. It burns more. You burn more just digesting it, so to me it makes sense to keep it pretty high.
And you have like the room to work with. Like someone that's able to cut at 3,000 calories has that room. If you had to cut it like 1,800, and then you had your protein really high, then you only had to eat like 100 grams of carbs, and it kind of suck. And it's like a trade-off. But like
Yeah,
that's sweet because you've been able to you can keep those calories so high, and I think like the fact that you don't have that much fat to lose, like if you're cutting, you're already at 9% body fat. You're cutting like how much do you usually cut when you try and get lean, like really lean?
you talking like how long?
Like yeah, how long and like how much body fat do you try and drop?
Eh, it's really it's dependent on the type of the job too. If I'm going for like a photo shoot with guys like Pat Lee or like Louis Raphael, like well-known fitness photographers, you want to be shredded. So for that, it's going to be a little more intense versus if you're doing a job for say like Under Armour or something like that, where you want to just have the athletic look, 8% maybe. Um, so I mean, realistically, I never I never get too fat, so it's like I don't need to diet that much, and
Right.
I mean, I think last summer I only dieted for about 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
From where I was, I went from maybe 195 down to like 180, and then I carved up and I was like 185. So a lot of it's water manipulation too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's always been fairly easy for me to get lean just because I don't get fat. I spend a lot of time either at maintenance or above maintenance, and I don't do all these dreamer bulks and things like that. So
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. So I mean, just to kind of cover before we go into like this new direction, I guess I guess people might be a little bit taken aback right now because they're listening to you like, okay, you're eating like 3,000 calories, you enjoy ice cream, you're eating 400 grams of carbs, you're getting down to low levels of body fat, quote 5-6%, and wow, like oh my God, like that's crazy, and people listening, what creates fat loss for anyone that hasn't kind of been keeping up on all the episodes is that calorie deficit. So, for
yeah,
example, Nate burns 3,500 calories per day, and he's eating 3,000. He's gonna lose fat,
yeah,
whether he's having
yep,
400 grams or 0 grams of carbs, or whether he's having ice cream or just chicken breast and broccoli. The deficit is what creates fat loss. You can't create energy out of nothing. So, I mean, people get so stuck on this idea of just eating these healthy foods, staying away from this and that, and it's because they haven't taken the time to learn what creates fat loss and to learn like about how much they can have while being in that deficit. And so it's
100%.
it's stressful because like I was over at like a friend's house and their mom was like talking about like she was asking me about my diet, and she was like, oh, you shouldn't eat that, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't ever go out and have like like French fries, and I'm like, oh my God, this is stressful, Jesus. Like I wanted to like kind of be like, hey, this isn't what like being lean is about, but I didn't. It was useless at that point.
Yeah, I always get a lot when I tell people, you know, what I've been telling you. I always get a lot of like, you know, especially when you're telling older people, they're always like, oh, well, you're still young, like, you know, just wait to get to my age. And I'm just like, well, no, I have an understanding of physiology and nutrition, so you know, when I get to be your age, I'll understand that I can't get away with this necessarily. But you know, the fact of the matter is, it's calories in versus calories out. I mean, bottom line, you know.
Yeah, people. Oh my God, that's the people love to throw out the my age thing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's.
it's
I
the
mean,
piece of the book.
because from their experience, they probably didn't have to worry about what they're eating when they're 20. They're active, they're doing this and that, and they just didn't have to worry about it. And then when they got older, they just start eating more because maybe they're not happy with their life, so they want to like eat more and experience more fulfillment. Maybe they're not playing sports, they're not doing the things they used to love, and they're less active. They're eating more, and then all of a sudden the weight comes on. But it's like the key wasn't that you were young. That's not why you're lean. It wasn't necessarily because you're young. It was because you're exercising more. You weren't eating as much, and yeah. So that's like the worst thing ever. But
Well, and it's because, and they don't understand that it's because I'm tracking everything that goes in my body. You know, where they just assume like, oh, well, he's eating all this junk food all day long. It's like, well, no, it's because I'm tracking every single thing that goes into my mouth. So if you were to do that too, you could get away with it too. But nobody wants. That's not what people want to hear. You know, they want to have some kind of cop out for why they're not, you know, looking a certain way. I don't know. You know.
Yeah, I mean that cop out is the worst. So actually so you were mentioning earlier that you don't really have to cut that long. You don't let yourself go above 9%, maybe 10% body fat.
Yeah, you know, it's like I'm pretty much at a stage now where I don't really all out bulk anymore. I'm technically in a bulking phase now, but it's really, I mean, you know, I'm gaining maybe half a pound every week to 2 weeks. You know, just enough to where I'm not storing a big amount of fat. So if something comes up, I can easily trim down.
Right, and that's a really important point to make because same way we're talking about numbers and how people want to be a lot heavier, right? They want to put on a lot of muscle quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this illusion that they can gain a ton of muscle.
Oh yeah.
And if that's the case, then you see people walking around that are 400 pounds of muscle. And it's just you don't see that because it doesn't happen. So yeah. So how do you approach like a lean bulk? Because you're at the point where you're 195 and very lean. Like it's like how much bigger can you get? So I mean you got to take it really slowly if you want to stay lean.
Yeah, you know, I think my wake up call was a few years ago. I was like, all right, I'm gonna see what this dirty bulking thing's all about. And you know, I was eating probably like 5,000 plus calories a day, no cardio, just bro split, and I got up to 230 pounds, and I was fat as hell. I was like, having trouble going upstairs, but you don't realize it at the time. You're like, oh, I'm getting big, you know, because in clothes, you kind of look like a football player or something, you know. But then you take your shirt off and you're like, oh, like what is this? Mm-hmm. So then that's when I kind of realized the truth behind all of it. There's no quick fix. Muscle takes years to build, and that's what people don't understand. They'll especially people come to me for advice. They're like, Nate, I want to look like you in 12 weeks. I was like, okay, well, I've been doing this for 7 years. So if you can look like me in 12 weeks, then maybe I'm getting coaching from you.
That's a sick point, and it's like, yeah, it takes time to like put in that work and to create that muscle growth, but it also takes time to learn how to like apply yourself and do this shit, because you could take your mind, throw yourself in some beginner's body, and you'll be able to achieve the results a lot faster than them, because you have that discipline, you have that drive, you have the consistency to kind of push through, keep going. There's a skill that comes with just putting in that work, like a mental skill. And so it's like, yeah, it takes like, for someone's first year, they might be able to put on 20 pounds of muscle if they're doing everything right. But it's also like a learning process in which you learn like how to get the job done, like how to push yourself and experience that growth, track things. And so it's rare you see someone completely new to the game that's going for muscle growth or fat loss that just nails it that first time. Mm-hmm. What can happen on paper, usually people fall short of that, just because it's like it's like a skill. So if it's first time trying to build muscle, it's not like you're not gonna be able to do it to your absolute extreme. Like if you like Nate, if you went all the way back to when you first started training, you probably experienced greater results if you knew what you know now.
Absolutely, 100%.
All right, cool. So let's kind of get into how does the mindset kind of play into this? I know we kind of talked about that a bit, but I mean you have some tools and things that you do that help you like a lot on this journey. Do you want to share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people, they come to me for advice, or they look at me and they say, "Oh, that would be cool to do what you're doing. Like, I could never do that though. It's so much work, or this and that." And what people don't realize is, like, I'm like the least likely candidate for this. I mean, when I started, I was 120 pounds at 6'1". Always that quiet kid in high school. Never popular. But I had it in my head that, what, someday I'm gonna be a fitness model. I'm gonna be on covers. And to me there was no way it wasn't gonna happen. It was just it's what it was. And I had so many people telling me, well, you should be realistic. They're like, everyone's built differently. You should maybe set more attainable goals. And I was like, no, I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, you want to be average, then go be average. So, we tend to like have a negativity bias. So anytime there's a negative event in our lives, it tends to supersede like 5 positive ones. So if somebody has a poor experience, either trying to do a workout program or a diet or whatever it is, that just like completely ruins them, and they'll totally forget to see the good in anything that they've done. They might have had like a great transformation, but just one slip up will completely knock them on their ass. And I just tend to always try to see the good in things, and say, if there's a problem, I ask myself, all right, well, what's great about this right now? And your initial reaction is going to be like, nothing, this sucks. But you force yourself. You're like, if I had to choose, this is something I picked up from Tony Robbins. It's like, if I had to choose something that was good about this situation, what would it be? And when you kind of look at it from that angle, you focus more on solutions rather than the problem at hand. So, it's really, really important to have like a vision of where you're going, and just not be absorbed by the negative, because there's going to be a lot of negative stuff. And that's what really separates people that achieve their goals versus people that don't. So
that's like a favorite quote of mine by Napoleon Hill, and it's with every adversity comes the seed of an equal or greater benefit. And so, yeah, if people get too tied to this negative event, and they let that define them, they let that, like, they kind of cling on to that, and then they don't see, like you said, they don't see the possibilities that come out from that. And yeah, almost everything can be framed in a positive way. I mean, you could literally like do a terrible diet, be horrible, you could be miserable, you could be gaining weight, and then there is some good there. You learned about something that doesn't work, and then you found out more about yourself. Like, okay, well, maybe I can't do low carb dieting. I tried to do low carb dieting. I went miserable, ended up cheating all the time. It's not working. Okay, I need to find another way to do this. And then maybe I need to try and find a way to have more carbs in my diet while still maintaining a deficit. Maybe you tried to do a high carb diet and the high carbs weren't for you. You just didn't respond well to high carbs, and you found that you got more cravings on a high carb diet. So you lower your. I mean, there's people on like all sides of the camps. Most people kind of in the middle ground. There's people everywhere. So I mean, yeah, I mean that's just like one little easy example, but like there's so much stuff. Like I'm sure we could come up with things all day.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you brought up a great point too about just the trial and error process. Like one of my favorite stories is, like we all know Colonel Sanders, KFC. Like he tried to sell his chicken recipe to, I think he got something like 9,000 or 10,000 like no's before he got his first yes, but he was so persistent. And now look, I mean, everyone knows KFC, so it's like, it's what separates the winners from the losers, I guess. I guess that's why there's not many Colonel Sanders in the world. Because who would have stopped after one no? a lot of us would have, you know. So I think the challenges and just what we overcome in the process and what we learn throughout the journey is so much more rewarding than the actual outcome. The action is so much more enjoyable than the outcome.
And I love this point that you brought up right off the bat when I was like, hey, like, what are your thoughts on mindset? Like, how does that, what do you have to kind of talk about there? And you just brought this whole point that negative circumstances happen and people refuse to look at the good in it.
Yes.
They refuse, and like, conflict is a part of life. Like, things go wrong.
Yes.
What are, like, on a global scale, what are humans? One of humans' favorite things to do? We love to watch movies. What are movies? It's conflict. It's something goes wrong, and then we see what happens. But when it happens to us, we're like, it shouldn't be like this. This shouldn't happen. Now I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sob about my story.
Right.
Can't build muscle. I don't
I love it when people say, like, I get this all the time. People will just be like, oh, I wish it was easier. I wish it was easier. I wish it wasn't so hard. I'm just like, that's the whole point. That's what, you know, anything in life worth having is going to be difficult. If it was easy, you know, there wouldn't be any satisfaction in achieving it.
Right.
And everyone would look great. Everyone would walk around with 20-inch arms and 50-inch chests and 8-packs and.
Right. And there's that, like, perceived difficulty. There's that, like, perceived just long road and this struggle and this burden. But I mean, what we were wanting to talk about and what you want to talk about was actually Eckhart Tolle. And it's like, ultimately, like, if you just focus on what you can do right now, you just focus on this step that you're taking right now, it's not that hard. Because people they want to gain 20 pounds, they want to lose 50 pounds of fat, and they see all this stuff ahead of them. You know, all these workouts they have to do, all these days of, like, proper nutrition, and they see that and, like, wow. And it's like, yo, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do any of that. All you have to do is this right here. That's all. And then tomorrow, focus on tomorrow. And stop thinking about the future, because you're putting all this pressure on yourself. You're putting all these days of dieting and all this onto this one day, and all that is irrelevant. Because when that happens, it happens. Mm-hmm. It's like all you can control is this moment. And so it's a weird kind of shift, you know what I'm saying? It's like a lot of people listen to that and be like, what are you talking about? I still have to do those 100 days of dieting. I still have to do that. Well, it's like that's a mental concept of the future. It's a mental projection of the future. It's nothing you have to do right now. It's hard to kind of let that sink in, but
no, absolutely, and it's really hard to do, but you know, it's definitely necessary, and it's, you know, there inherently really are no problems. It's more so how we think about things and then create problems via that. You know, our brains are intuitively peaceful and you know, not overbearing with conflicts, but we make it so by being so overwhelmed with what we have to do in the future, or what we think we have to do, or what we might have to do in the future, and you know, we just miss out on or waste, you know, the efforts of today, and that's what really matters. That's what's going to get us up there. So
right, that's a beautiful point. I think, like, I think, like, people these days, based on, like, our obsession with you know, validation, our obsession with, like, having this thing so we can be cool, like, having this great body. Imagine how good life will be when we have this great body. I think people they project too much on the outcome. They put too much value on the outcome. Instead, they should be seeing, how does these workouts I'm doing now, this proper nutrition, this learning how to do it, how does that benefit me? How does the process enhance my life? Not necessarily the end goal. Because the end goal will happen when you nail the process. But if you still focus on the end goal and you see the process as just like this means to an end that's hard work and unenjoyable, you're not going to last. Because, I mean, everyone that you can talk to, like Nate, I can easily ask you this, anyone that's really achieved a great physique, they end up falling in love with the nutrition and training to some extent. Well, or at least, like, the maybe, you know, I guess some people kind of will still kind of make things way more harder. Like, people might be, like, watching this, like, does Nate ever go out? Does he ever have a social life? And it's like, of course. But, like, people, yeah, I mean, if you can find out how does this process enhance my life, then it's just an outlook shift, and then it makes everything easier. And then when the process is effortless and enjoyable and fulfilling, then it's just it's a much smoother road to your goals.
Yeah, 100%. I've always said, who do you, the enjoyment comes from who you become in the process. So if you become, a dick in the process of achieving your goals, then, it's really, you didn't achieve anything. Success without fulfillment isn't success, it's failure. So if you're, chasing something for, like you said, validation, or what you think will get you power, or, whatever, you're going to be miserable in the process, and you're probably going to be even more miserable once you achieve the goal, because you're going to be like, look, is this it? What else is there? Because you never learned to enjoy the process. You never became something more by achieving it. So
right. And it's kind of funny how life works like that, It's funny how it's like that thing you really want, in order for you to get it, you have to have like a strong shift in your outlook, in your mindset, in your internal reality. It's got to change. Like I heard a great quote. It's like your external reality, like what you want in life, like the outer layers of your life, is a reflection of the inside, and so and how you feel inside. And so if you are someone that just has this feeling like everything goes wrong, nothing really goes right, I can never achieve my goals. I don't have they always see they don't see what they have. They always focus on what they don't have.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, that's like a common mindset you see amongst people. It's like it's always about what they don't have, what someone else has that they don't, and they never have gratitude for what they have. And it's like, well, you're going to be constantly defined by that perception. If what you're telling yourself is, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have that, you're never going to feel abundant. You're never going to feel happy and fulfilled, because you could be given more stuff. You could be given $1 million. It's like, oh, well, that guy has $2 million. Oh, I have an Audi. That guy has a Ferrari. Oh, my girlfriend's very pretty, but that supermodel's hotter. It's like you have to kind of appreciate what you have and kind of shift that inner reality, and then things will start to kind of come to you in a way, or you'll start to attract things, or you'll start to achieve things, rather.
I couldn't agree more. They say, there's a quote, I forget who said it, but it's like when you exchange your feelings of expectations for feelings of gratitude, your whole world changes.
Yeah.
Because what you focus on is what you manifest. So if you're focused on what you don't have, you're just subconsciously attracting more of what you don't want. So focus on what you do want, and then it's almost like you'll notice a series of strange coincidences in your life just start appearing, like you said. There really is some truth to the law of attraction, things like that. And what you mentioned about gratitude, it's funny you mentioned that. It's like my morning routine basically consists of every morning I write down 3 things, and it has to be something different every morning. 3 things I'm grateful for. Sometimes it's hard. It's like sometimes you don't feel grateful. It's like, okay, well, if I had to be grateful, what could we be grateful for? There's always something to be grateful for. And it's possible to feel grateful and fearful or angry at the same time. So it's a good way to start your day. Then I go on to list, what would make today great? What do I want to accomplish today? Things like that, and I write it down. I visualize, and 9 times out of 10, the day goes how I want, because I'm taking charge of my day. I'm not letting the day, take charge of me. I'm not being absorbed by what I don't want to happen.
I love that. That's
dramatically changed my life.
Yeah, that's a fantastic. So let's give people a day-to-day view into your life and these different tools that you utilize, like these different mindset success tools. So just to kind of recap right here, so you start your day by finding 3 different things that you're grateful for. And your day could be going horrible. Your girlfriend could have just broken up with you. You could have lost your job. And then you're like, okay, well, what am I grateful for? And then, and so actually before we get into this, I just want to kind of go back to something you're talking about, and how when you change your expectations to gratitude, your whole world changes. This is very, very, very true, very, very, very real. And for people that are having a hard time grasping this, just imagine you have 2 kids, okay? Just 2 kids. One of them is has like this arrogance and they feel like they deserve everything. They're very entitled. I want this. This should be given to me. This should be given to me. It shouldn't be like this. And the other kid is just grateful. He's just like chill. And maybe one kid is your real kid, and the grateful kid is your adopted kid. Who knows? Or maybe they're both your kids. But just think about that for a second. In your gut, in your heart, you're gonna feel like this kind of like you're not gonna want to like, sport. You're not gonna like want to like. You're just gonna be kind of annoyed on some level with this little kid that's like so arrogant. Like, what's his deal? And then that grateful kid, you're gonna want to like take him and play baseball with him. You want to go take him to like a hockey game. I mean, that's how I feel. I'm sure other people feel the same way. It's like, no, we don't want that like manipulative, arrogant, entitled kid. And so that's like how the world responds to you. If you walk through the world feeling like entitled, like, oh, I should have this, people are gonna be like, they're gonna like, everything kind of I think would change.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, you manifest what you think. So if you're going about your day, gratefully and positively, people notice. They do. And like I said, things will just open up for you. Better things will start happening. I've noticed it firsthand, and it could be that you're just more conscious of it, but even so, it's still real because it's happening. So.
Yeah, very cool. And the same kind of token, people like to focus on like what I want, and it's like, well, it's a value exchange. The more that you give, the more value you give to the world, the more you're going to receive. Because like ultimately, you don't get anything for nothing. And even people that get stuff for nothing, usually it comes with a big cost, or it just falls apart.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no such thing as a self-made millionaire. There's no such thing as a one-man team, at least not a sustainable one. Yeah. So you're gonna have to. I mean, even Arnold Schwarzenegger, who has admitted to stepping on people's fingers along the way, even one of the 6 rules is give back, give back to others. So you definitely have to, you definitely have to do something more than just for yourself. Do something greater than yourself. And that's nothing I try to do. I try to make just at least one person per day, make them smile, do a good deed for somebody. Wow. Because it makes you feel better, but it just you get what you give. So
I like that. So let's kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier. And so you start your day with like some like a gratitude drill for just 3 things that you're grateful for, and that kind of brings in like a positive light to your day, because instead of dwelling on negative stuff, you're looking at the positive. You're seeing the world in a different light, and that allows you to kind of see different opportunities or experience different experiences. And then after that, you write down basically how this would be a good day. Like, how do you want this day to go down? Like, what has to happen for this to be an awesome day? And usually that involves like action steps, things you need to do. Not like, I just hope this magically happens.
Yeah. So like I said, I'll wake up. I usually meditate for 15 to 20 minutes beforehand, either transcendental meditation or actually like creative visualization, where actually try to visualize exactly what I'm trying to do, whether it's what I want my physique to look like, whether it's how I want my day to go, what I want my future to look like. Because it's there, in a sense, your brain really cannot distinguish something that's vividly imagined versus something that's actually happening. It's true. They've done studies on it. So there is like a science to it. It's called basically neuroplasticity. You can essentially change the way you think. You can actually change areas of your brain that are either overactive or underactive in order to manifest a better reality. And I found it to be true. When I am very vivid in imagining what I want to accomplish, 9 times out of 10 it happens, either by raising awareness or just because, like I said, your brain really cannot distinguish. Your brain. A lot of people think that your brain is like your body, or it's not. It's your employee. You can train it to do whatever it is that you want to do, but nobody takes the time to do it. So that's another thing. I either meditate, creative visualization, and then, like you said, I do a gratitude journal. So 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things that would make today awesome, and then Usually I'll try to find like a nice quote or something like that, and I'll write it down. But here's the key: I write that all down in Word document every day. And I copy and paste it and I email it to myself. So that way, no matter where I am, I can always go back in my phone, look it up, and be like, oh, am I doing this? All right, well, I got to talk to a pretty girl or something, you know.
Yeah.
So, you can hold yourself accountable in that way, you know. So that's something I do.
Right, and for people that are like, oh, okay, well, I'll just like kind of do that in my head. I'll just think of three
Oh
things.
yeah, you won't.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. You have to write it down. That just kind of makes it real. I mean, like for me, if I'm like, if I have things in my head, they're like thrown around, like, okay, well, I have to do that, and I have to do this, and I should go do that, and then maybe I want to go shopping or whatever, and I don't do any of it. I don't do any. Like, I mean, I could like work all day if I wanted to. It's like unless I actively like I'm like, okay, I need to go and get this taken care of. Like unless I write it down, like I won't do it. And so
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point.
mind blowing how much of a difference this makes. Just like get my hair cut and putting on paper Monday. It's like, well, shit, I do it now.
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for personal accountability, and sometimes, I find if I get lazy with it, say I skip a day or something like that, I won't do shit. I will not do anything. I will find reasons to just sit around and just troll on the internet or something.
Yeah. And then
Well,
after those lazy days where you're trolling on the internet, like you feel unfulfilled at the end. You're like, oh,
oh yeah,
it's gonna kill your mental state.
another wasted day.
Yeah.
But hey, we're only humans, so.
That's true. I was gonna say, yeah. So interestingly enough, we're talking about the importance of kind of writing this stuff down instead of just throwing it around in your head. And actually, this is a good point for people listening. It's like sometimes like people have they have an idea in their head of what they want to eat that day. They have like this. They're like, okay, I want to eat healthy, whatever that means, and then it's and, I know, and then they end up screwing up, or they end up going over their calories, or they end up kind of eating more than they wanted to, and it's like, well, in the same way, writing stuff down helps you get it done, or writing stuff down helps you follow through. Well, or writing your goals down helps you actually work towards them and achieve them. Well, actually, if you have an idea of what you want to eat for the day, writing it down helps so much.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you don't even have an idea of what you want to eat today, but your goal is to somehow like lose weight or like eat less, well, writing down everything that you are going to eat or you are eating helps a ton. Which is almost like a good beginner step. So people that are not yet at the point where they're ready to count macros and track everything and use like MyFitnessPal or my Net Diary, people that aren't ready to do that, well then just don't even worry about the calories you're taking in. Just like write down what you're eating, because what happens is someone that is just like snacks compulsively or eats a lot more than they need to, if they're like if they like see some food out, some bag of chips, like I want to have some bag of chips, like oh we'll have to write it down. Well, now it just feels like real. Like instead like eating a bag of chips felt like nothing. Oh, like whatever, it's not a big deal. It's like so easy to give in. Now it's like, oh, I have to write it down. So now I feel like actually accountable. I feel like I'm like really breaking my goals here if I have to write it down. So that's like a good first step for people that aren't ready to like do like the full tracking. It's just like for 2 weeks, just write down everything you eat, or like have an idea of what you want to eat each day, and then write it down as you go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, like you said, I have all my clients track their macros. It's a non-negotiable. It has to be done. I don't believe in set meal plans. I believe in flexible dieting. But what's funny is that as you said, writing it down will stop people from that's not always the case. I mean, it's funny. He's actually a friend of mine, so I don't feel bad saying it. But I was teaching him macros, and he'd be like, dude, I had a bad day eating today, and I'd go, and it was like 6,000 calories of just horrible food, but he tracked all of it, like it's like, so he's like, in a way, it's still discipline, but
Yeah.
It's like,
that's so funny. I mean, yeah.
Meal 3 was like 5 Klondike bars. It's just
Wow.
It's funny,
Oh
But,
man.
yeah.
I mean, even still, it's still like a learning process. It's still like a, I mean, just like, even if like, cause sometimes like, if sometimes even if you can't count macros, but you go to a restaurant and they don't have the nutrition guidelines, I mean, if you've been tracking macros for a while, you can kind of get an idea of like what you're getting in. You can be like, okay, this is about my normal portions, you know. And so I think sometimes people get stressed out, like, oh, I can't count my macros in this circumstance, and so they're just like, whatever, I'll throw out the towel. But I mean, even you could just be like, okay, well, here's my options. You know, this is what I want. This would be a good choice, and that's what I'm going to stick to, and then not feel guilty about it. Oh, like I don't know my macros, because I think that's important, not to like to kind of be able to kind of live your life too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always, and I mean, I'm guilty of this myself, but like, fitness and bodybuilding is just, it's almost a gateway drug into OCD. You know, and people will just, I mean, I'll have emails from clients being like, Nate, I was 5 grams over on my fat today. Should I do some cardio before bed? And then things like this. And I'm just like, no, just like, and it like almost breaks my heart to like, just to read this, because I mean, you know, I used to kind of go through that too. Just being totally obsessed about hitting numbers, or, you know, eating clean, you know. But yeah, there's definitely a balance between, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of things that we think matter really don't. And I think that's what a lot of people have to realize. They just kind of see the bigger picture versus, you know, I slipped up today or whatever, you know. And if you slip up one day out of 365 days, well, you're a hero, man. So
Yeah, no, exactly. And even if you start to slip up less, even the first week you slip up like 5 times, and then the next week you slip up like 2 times, that's great progress in a way.
Yeah, it's still incremental change. So yeah.
Very cool. So I guess let's kind of wrap up almost. I want to like kind of throw out a hypothetical example. Nate, let's say you have a client, new client, and you know, one of those hard case clients that's having trouble with sticking to their nutrition and training. I mean, what kind of mindset? How would you have them like approach any sort of daily rituals or mindset stuff to really help them achieve their goals? Like they really want to create that bad body. Or sorry, that bad body. They really want to create that bad body. They really want to create that great body. They want to achieve their dream physique. They want it really badly, but they're just sabotaging themselves. They're having trouble. I mean, what would be like the first kind of advice you give them in terms of like the mindset? And
yeah, so before anyone starts anything, I'm always like, okay, well, why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. Like, I understand what your goals are. Why are you doing it? What is your intrinsic motivation for doing this? And either they don't know, or it's something, you know, nice. Like, well, I want to be around for my kids. I want to, you know, just, you know, feel better about myself, have better self-confidence. And I'm like, okay. So identifying what they're really trying to do is usually a good place to start. And from there, holding them accountable on that when they slip up. So being like, they'll email me or something like that, being like, this sucks. Like I'm not really feeling this. And I'm like, okay, well, remember why you started. You know, you want to feel more confident in yourself. And what are you doing now? Do you want to make yourself a liar? You know, do you want to just give up that easily? And no, they don't. The truth is they don't. So I truly believe that most people are, you know, they can do whatever they want. I mean, anyone can do this stuff. You could train a monkey to do this stuff, but it's the mental barriers and everything that changes everything. And we as humans, you know, it's the mind that sabotages us. It's not anything physical or whatever. It's the mental roadblocks and adversity. Life gets in the way, whatever it may be. So.
Bam. Very, very cool. Using like your deepest motivator to achieve your goals as a way to keep you accountable. When in that moment of weakness or whatever, that moment where you're like, oh, I just want to, you know, just want to do this, and then you're like, wait, like my goals, like that value there is higher than my need to, like, you know, eat that ice cream after I've already hit my macros.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I think it's important too to have some extrinsic motivation too. Like obviously, everyone likes getting compliments, everyone likes getting attention from chicks, but at the same time, it's not going to be, you know, having a girl say she likes your arms or whatever is not going to get you up at 5 in the morning to do squats, or
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it will. I don't know. I mean, but you definitely have to have some kind of deeper motivation than just external stuff.
Yeah, if that was like your sole motivator, like getting that compliment on your arms.
Oh, God bless you. Yeah.
If that was your sole motivator, can you just imagine just like, you're at a bar and a girl's just like, wow, like you have great arms. You're like, yes! You high five! Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, maybe we should all strive to be like them, because
all those workouts and sacrifice and
yeah, that would be great. We just thought we'd all be happy, not 24/7.
Yeah. Oh man, this has been an awesome podcast. Been very insightful. Yeah, that's like, it's easy for people to be like, oh yeah, like, I should go do that gratitude each morning and write down how my 3 things I want to like accomplish today and meditate. But it's like a lot of things that people are probably just gonna procrastinate. And because like, I mean, I've met a lot of people. I don't know very many people that kind of do that thing on a daily basis. So that's very cool.
Yeah, until I consciously made it a habit, I was not getting. You're not going to get anything from it unless you make it a habit. But
Right.
I believe it was actually you're a fan of Tim Ferriss, if I recall.
Yeah.
He said he's a big meditator, and he said that out of all the people he's interviewed, the most common trend was that every single successful person was an avid meditator. And they all had morning routines. They all held them. So self accountability is really a huge thing, because no one's coming to save you. No one's going to hold you accountable. I mean, you can have coaches that try, but at the end of the day, you got to kind of sack up. So.
Yeah. Well, here before we can finally wrap up, what has your experience been with meditation? What do you think? What do you think it can give to someone?
Yeah, that's a great question. At first, being like a type A personality like I am, at first you're gonna feel like you're gonna get frustrated, because you're like, God damn, I just can't shut my head off. You feel like you're failing at it, and it gets kind of frustrating. But when you learn to, my biggest advice would be learn to just not try to get anything from it. Like, be like, it's okay that I'm having these thoughts. That's the whole point. The whole point is to basically observe your thoughts, learn more about how you think, and increase your concentration. So go into it with a basic goal, whether it be stress relief, whether it be gaining insight on yourself, or meditating on a certain area of your life that you're trying to come to a decision to, or whatever. Because basically, it was Tolle actually who said, when you are still, when the mind is still, that's when the answers will come to you. And it's so true, because unless you can actually, shut down, you're gonna have all these crazy things going on in your head, and until you can really just be at peace with yourself, you're not gonna ever realize whoa, this really isn't a big problem, or this really isn't a big deal. And you'll notice in your everyday life too, you'll be able to kind of just stop and be like, all right, this is not worth getting stressed over. Or, just this morning, for example, I've been training kind of early in the morning lately, and I asked this guy for a spot, and he goes, I go up to him, I was like, hey, can I have a spot? And he's doing his 20-pound dumbbell curls, and he just looks at me and he goes, no. And he walks away. And I've never experienced anything like that. Yeah. And so my first reaction is I want to rip this guy's heart out. But then, the second reaction was okay, am I really yeah, he pissed me off, but am I gonna give him the benefit of, poisoning my mind and letting this bother me? No. I'm not. It's not a big deal. And then I asked someone else for a spot, and they had a PR. So, it was in the end, it was a victory. But little things like that. You just learn to let things go, and have a little less anxiety in your life, and just gain a clearer insight. So.
Yeah. No, it's funny how a little thing like that, someone's negative kind of comment, kind of be get inside your head for a while.
Oh yeah.
That's just. That happens, yeah, no, it's good to be able to pull away from that, because people get so trapped in that cycle, that track, and it's like, hey, whoa, this is just like my kind of ego coming out. I just need to like just allow that to be and accept that, because most times the negativity is a form of non-acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
You don't accept what just happened. You're like, that shouldn't have happened. I don't accept it. But it's like, well, I accept that he said no, and then all of a sudden that kind of peace washes over you. And it's like, it's funny how like most negativity is just some form of non-acceptance for something. And even like on a deeper note, like a lot of times people are trying to take negative action. I think one reason why people kind of fail is because they are working out because they don't like the way they look now. They don't accept themselves. If that's what your motivation is, if that's kind of why you're working out, it's not going to work. And because you're going to be constantly defined by this identity you have that you're not enough, that you can't accept yourself, and it's just going to be an awful process. But you see, this is a question I'll get, because I'll talk about like why, okay, it's important, to really accept yourself right now, so that there's ease and joy in that journey. So it's not like you're chronically trying to get to that 6% body fat, and like every day is like miserable. You just want to get there. And so people are like, well, if I accept myself, then why would I want to change? And that's a question I'll get, and it's like, well, no, that's not how that works. If you like, I'm trying to just come up with an example here, but it's like only really when you accept yourself that you can finally really achieve your goals, because you can't apply yourself while at the same time be resisting something.
I couldn't agree more. 100%. They say I read this book. It was called Quantum Success. For anyone who wants to check that out, amazing book. But like you said, it's basically detachment and acceptance. People think, all right, well, once I'm successful, I'll be happy. But the truth is, you have to be happy before you can be successful.
Right.
You really have to kind of detach yourself from any outcome and just be like, I'm fulfilled now, so I don't, and a lot of people will look at that as saying like, oh, well, you're just not driven enough, and it's like, well, no, I'm just like, if I get into a car accident and I can't work out, it's not gonna, ruin my life. It's just like, there's so much more to life than just getting there,
Right. And exactly. And so for anyone that kind of didn't fully understand this concept, it's like, as far as like, oh, well, I shouldn't accept myself because then I won't push myself. It's like, hey, well, let's say that, you run a business and you just like lost a major client, or maybe you lost your job, whatever. If you don't accept the circumstances that just happened, you'll just be constantly like, it will become part of your identity, and you'll start to like see, like, you'll start to like kind of feel like, oh, like, this negative thing happened, like nothing goes for me, like this shouldn't have happened, this shouldn't have happened, and then it will stop you from learning how you can progress forward. If you haven't accepted something, there's negativity in you that will stop you from finding out what you can do. And like earlier what you're saying, Nate, is that people in the beginning, you were talking about how it's important to find something good out of something negative. Like what are some good things that have happened because of this? And so you can't do that if you don't accept it. Like, that's the first step, is like that gets you to accept it. Okay, well, I can do this and that. And so it's like, that's just a cool thing to kind of think about. Is like, if you feel negativity coming up, or if you're like taking negative action, oh, I don't like myself now, I don't like myself now, it's like you want to take that positive action. Accept myself now. I'm going to move towards my goals. I'm going to enjoy those steps along the way. And allow the true value, like that moment, like training in the gym, that moment you're in there, pushing that bar up, allow that to kind of provide the joy, and then work towards seeing that incremental progress.
Oh yeah, and just kind of bouncing off what you said there, it's like with the negative thoughts, I mean, they have way more momentum than any positive thought. So the second a negative thought comes up, you got to nip it in the bud, because it's going to consume you if you don't watch it. Versus the positive thought, you're like, oh, you feel good for a second, but it doesn't really, you don't really ruminate on it, because you don't need to. Like, Tully always says, your negative thoughts give you an identity of sorts. They give you, like, you subconsciously almost want problems because they give you like an identity. He's like, it's normal, but it's also insane, and it's true. You know, if you
Oh,
don't,
well, yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say fantastic. That's a very deep understanding of yeah. I've listened to like a lot of his audiobooks, like
Same.
2 dozen times.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. That's like kind of my form of meditation that I'll do is like I'll put in totally because he talks so slowly. At first, if your mind is if your mind is constantly, if you're like compulsively thinking, you can't really listen to totally until you become still because he talks slowly and it's not for entertainment. It's not like something you can grip onto. It's like it's almost like an allowing comes in where you just allow these things to kind of come into your mind and you become still. And so like when there's that pause, you're not like where's the next thing? Where's the next thing? You're like kind of chill, and then like you take your headphones out, and it's like there's not like that. Because I think a lot of times people spend like their life trying to get this done, keep that now, be here, and then I want to be there, and I want to get this thing out of the way, and it's like it's just kind of like it's like you learn to be able to flow with the moment, kind of be one with that moment.
One of my it's kind of morbid. One of my favorite like ways to look at it is like meditation is almost like being dead without the commitment.
Oh yeah.
So just just shut your head off. There's really no problems. And just a side note about the totally audiobooks. I actually have Practicing the Power of Now, and I usually listen to it in my car, along with I like Tony Robbins audiobooks too. But funny story, I was driving actually to a photo shoot in New York, and from where I am, New York's about a 3-hour drive. So I listened to the entire Practicing the Power of Now audiobook. But like you said, his voice, I was falling asleep at the wheel. I had to turn it off. I was like halfway there. I was like, I can't do this. I have to turn this off because I'm like veering off the side of the road because it's so like relaxing.
It's very
yeah. So
yeah, no, it's very very relaxing for sure. All right, cool, man. Well, dude, it's been absolutely awesome to get you on the podcast. For people that are listening and want to connect with you, they want to know where to keep up with you. Where should they go?
Yeah, so my Facebook page, which has all pretty much my links for online training, is www.natetebow.com. You don't even have to put in Facebook; it's just NATETEBOW.com. That'll put you up to my Facebook page. Online training, you can just email me at nt@natetebowfitness.com, and Instagram is just at n8TBOW. And that's pretty much what I do.
Very cool. So you have the Facebook, the Instagram, and your email there, and you're doing some YouTube videos too?
Yeah, I kind of started doing those. I kind of slacked last week, but every Monday I'm trying to put out something called like a Monday motivation kind of thing, just because I find they help me, and I've been getting some good feedback from other people too, and it's just another avenue to kind of get yourself out there. So.
Very cool. And what are your plans for 2015? Do you have any things you're working on or things upcoming?
Yeah. So like I said, right now, I felt I really needed a break from just being insanely shredded. So I signed recently with Silver Model Management in New York City. They have clients like Muscle and Fitness, Men's Health, Under Armour, like really big name clients. Greg Plitt was actually signed to them, like a lot of the top names. So
Silver Model Management?
What's that?
You say Silver Model Management?
Yeah, Silver Model Management in New York City.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I've heard of them. Nice.
Yeah. They're very, very probably one of the best, if not the best, fitness agencies in the U.S. So I was really stoked to be with them. So I'll be doing work for them. In the summertime, I'm planning on doing a few shoots, probably one out in Oregon. And then hopefully I'll see if I can shoot with guys like Louis Raphael again and whatnot. Just keep building my port, keep getting my name out there. So
that's fantastic, dude. All right, dude, we gotta sign up. We just gone over. Thank you so much for listening, and go check out Nate Tebow at natetebow.com.
Pleasure, Greg. Take care.
Bye.